We live in a society obsessed with the idea of zombies. Whether they're slow, or fast, or trying to tear up your azalea bushes, we can't outrun how pervasive the zombie has become in popular culture. This ubiquity naturally leads to the conversation, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? And while many zombie games that attempt to put this question to the test exist, only Bohemia Interactive Studio has truly put in the work to show what an absolute relentless pain in the ass trying to survive a zombie apocalypse would be. Their game, DayZ, has sold over 4 million copies, which may make it seem like it's accessible and easy to pick up, but nothing could be further from the truth. If you want in on the action of this decade-old zombie survival simulator, you're going to have to pay your dues. So grab a glow stick and a piece of fruit, and join me on a journey of hunger, fear, and general ignorance as I teach you how to be bad at DayZ. DayZ drops you in the fictional ex-Soviet Republic of Chinaris with nothing more than a few items and that one t-shirt you refuse to throw out. There's no clear objective aside from don't get murdered by zombies. Seems simple enough. You'll just throw on this fashionable women's suit jacket and immediately get murdered by the first zombies you encounter. Tip for being bad at DayZ number 1. Clomp around like a big dumb ogre so that zombies take notice of you. Zombies are interesting creatures. They come in two varieties, kind of standing in front of the thing you want to get to, or running around intensely with no clear plan. In my experience, zombies are somewhat attracted to sound, though it can be hard to get their attention even purposely using your microphone. What really gets them is seeing your dumb face. Zombies can tell you're not from around here just by looking at you, and they will get agitated and immediately begin trying to thrash you to death. Where most zombies bite, DayZ zombies are more akin to soccer hooligans who will punch you in the head for being with the wrong team. So, realizing that crouching near zombies is the way to go if you want to keep a low profile, you'll start a new run and load into the pitch dark, because DayZ has a day-night cycle and nighttime is a real bummer. Tip for being bad at DayZ number 2. Join a server that's currently in nighttime. Servers will let you know what time of day it currently is in-game, though I'm not sure what value there is gameplay-wise in making your player stare at a black screen for an hour. You can find flashlights or headlamps if you're lucky, and you'll start your run with a glow stick so that you can at least see your own feet as you clomp headlong into zombies. Now that it's light out again and you've properly avoided zombies, you're free to gallivant through the countryside, which is massive, and sometimes wet, because it also rains in DayZ, which is bad for your health. And also, all this cardio makes you hungry and thirsty. Which leads us to tip for being bad at DayZ number 3. Don't stock up on food and water and just jog through the rain until you die from some combination of hunger, thirst, or exposure. At the bottom right corner of your screen, you'll see a few stat meters for hunger, thirst, and temperature. When they deplete for long enough, they'll begin lowering your overall health until your run ends in your sad, lonely death. Rain is troublesome because it soaks your clothes and makes it difficult to get warm. Luckily, clothes are more abundant than food, and you'll be able to thrift new outfits as you travel inland. Staying hydrated is tricky because even bottled water will make you sick. Unless you have purification tablets, which I've never encountered, the only source of clean water is in wells. And food is really scarce until you realize that one of the most important sounds in the game is rooster crowing. If you don't want to be bad at DayZ, which this guide is definitively not for, stocking up on supplies is singularly important because if your survivor goes 20 minutes without eating, they'll begin starving to death. Survivors complain for snacks about as often and dramatically as my children. I'm routinely more dehydrated than these survivors and I don't go dying about it. Learning from your sad limp towards death, on your next run you'll grab a good haul of supplies before setting out. Water bottle, canned bacon, hiking boots, lemonade, a big pipe for hitting stuff, raincoat, bag for storage, gun, and duct tape, which is amazingly helpful for patching up your clothes and probably for crafting stuff. Of course, the tricky thing about stocking up is you need somewhere to put everything. Each article of clothing and/or bag you have on you can store a certain amount of items, which themselves each have a value for how much space they take up. Bags can obviously store more than t-shirts, which makes a lot of sense, unlike the fact that you can store items in your t-shirt. The biggest challenge of item management is equipping stuff. Anytime you want to use something, you have to manually move it from your inventory to your hands, which can be a bit awkward on console. Once it's in your hand, you can use the item, combine it with another item in your inventory, or drop it by accident. Tip for being bad at DayZ number 4. Don't utilize your quick slot. If you're trying to be as bad at this game as me, make sure you have to fully go into your menu to equip a weapon every time. But even with a full complement of helpful items, it doesn't mean much when you do things like walk into a cloud of gas or get thrashed by a zombie and don't know that your bandages need to be disinfected before you use them. Aside from there being so many unique mistakes to make, Something that makes DayZ special is that it's not just you versus the zombies. Up to 60 players can inhabit a server together, but the map is so big that it's fairly rare to run into one another. When you finally come across another player, you'll be so excited.
Hello.
You'll dance at each other and trade goods as a show of good faith that you mean no harm to one another. You travel together, finding and sharing supplies. You find duct tape and an alcoholic tincture so you won't get infected from dirty bandages. Things will be going so smoothly that you'll decide to take a break and seal up your jacket with duct tape. But in equipping the duct tape, you accidentally unequip your gun. And instead of duct taping your jacket like you were trying to do, you accidentally bind your own hands with the duct tape, which is apparently something you can do. Clearly, you having a gun and being a threat was offering some level of protection.
Oh, did I just fucking restrain myself? That's stupid. Oh, dude, why? Why?
Tip for being bad at DayZ number 5. Put your complete and unwavering trust in other players. Murdering other stupider players for their stuff is sometimes less work than looting a house, it turns out, so you at least understand the appeal. As you progress through your early runs in DayZ, you'll learn a lot about how to be bad at this game. Whether it's tip number 6, stay near the coast where loot is scarce and there's lots of zombies, tip number 7, fight multiple zombies at a time, or tip number 8, pretend you can outrun a zombie. Armed with all this knowledge, you slap a motorcycle helmet on your head and run into the wilderness until you find some power lines which you'll follow, knowing they must lead somewhere. Running alone through the countryside for nearly an hour, your journey will see you arrive at a solitary house where you'll slit a zombie's throat for a can of sardines that you'll open with the same sickle still slick with zombie gore. You've run a long way in the rain with limited food, no water, and no sense of where to go or what to do next. There aren't any clear guidelines for what to be doing, and the other players seem more interested in homicide than offering basic help.
Hey, can I ask you a question before you kill me? Dudes, before you murder me, can I ask you a couple questions? Then you can...
Which leads us to how to be bad at DayZ tip number 9. Don't spend a couple hours online watching tutorials. If you watch online tutorials, you might accidentally learn helpful things, like how to properly deflect zombie attacks by blocking while backing up, how to cut rags and make those rags into gloves so you don't get sick from eating with bloody hands, how to build a fire and cook food that you've hunted, and that you can wring water out of your clothes. If you do find yourself mastering some of these concepts and cooking up some tasty chicken, there's still no shortage of excellent tips. Whether it's tip number 10, jump into a train car and get completely trapped by zombies, tip number 11, try to start a fire while it's windy, tip number 12, get fed up trying to make a fire and eat your chicken raw, or tip number 13, forget what you learned previously about trusting people. The mark of progress is that you're finding more elaborate ways to be bad. You'll find a cool mace and some chicken to eat, but you'll fall prey to tip number 14. Don't scout high ground before engaging zombies. At this point, a dozen or so runs in, you somewhat have your bearings, and when you stumble upon a harvest of tomatoes someone planted for you, you'll be able to take a stroll through the woods, eating and just enjoying the peaceful nature of DayZ. Unlike towns, a wilderness trail offers a lovely break from the trials and tribulations of this otherwise bleak hellscape. The trees creak and groan in the wind, and the white noise of the rustling leaves soothe your frazzled nerves. You'll leave the woods feeling reinvigorated and ready to investigate a little village when next you play, but you log back in later on a random server and completely lose your bearings and then die. Tip for being bad at DayZ number 15, never take note of which server you were previously connected to. One thing to know about servers is that there is a difference between the public and community servers. Public servers are unmoderated, but the dog-eat-dog nature of them is probably the most authentic way to experience this game. Community servers can have their own rules and loot and or zombie spawn rates. You log into one that has a bunch of people running around shooting each other with guns that seems a little unhinged for your taste. Then you join a PvE server, where players aren't allowed to kill each other. Everywhere you go, there's top-grade loot, and before long you're impossibly well kitted out, taking out zombies one at a time on your journey to assembling the ultimate loadout. Zombies aren't even scary anymore. A kindly Frenchman will roll up in a military truck, and together you'll bash zombies apart and get even more food and good gear, and you'll become best friends, and you'll suddenly be hit with a kind of hollow feeling, because you know that this isn't how it's supposed to be. You know that in order to be progressing on your journey through this game, you need to be suffering. But after all of this fucking up and failing, you'll begin to wonder what the point of this game is, so you decide to find a player to ask. When you regain consciousness, you notice that there's a bully sitting on top of you so you can't get up, laughing at you and calling you names like and But between homophobic slurs, he informs you that the point of this game is to get to the northwest corner of the map where all the good gear is. So you crawl around waiting for this guy to get bored so you can die and start anew, because now you don't just have a mandate to not die. You have a destination, the place that one dickhead said you should go that's probably teeming with other dickheads. By now you've figured out a lot of things, like how fighting zombies is as good or better for finding consumables and searching houses. You've learned to scout locations and stand on top of things so you can stab at zombies with your pitchfork. You're honestly not even really that afraid of zombies anymore. You find a well so you can fill up on water that's guarded by a lone zombie. So you shoot at that zombie, and end up having to shoot a few more zombies. You use the sun to orient yourself on your journey northwest until you stumble upon a compass, which is suddenly the most useful item in the entire game. You encounter deer but fail at shooting one in the head, but that's okay, because you have enough food and water, and you found some guns and they'll be real handy when you get some ammo. You've got really good clothing, and who can forget your trusty pitchfork, Old Pokey. You've made considerable distance, scouted and fought well, avoided other players, and stuck to the woods to stay safe. And you feel like you're really gonna make it this time. That is, until you learn about tip number 16. There's f***ing wolves in this game.
Uh-oh. Ah, wolves! No!
But that's DayZ in a nutshell. The learning curve is the game, and the better you get at it, the further you'll go before you learn another new and painful lesson about how to suck at DayZ. It's hard to say that it's a game that most people even get good at. I think you might just get slightly less bad. As for reviewing this game, the graphics are fine, the item management and combat is a little janky, there's no clear objective to serve as the focal point for your efforts, and the learning curve is brutal with no real useful tutorials offered in-game. But this zombie survival simulator has some pretty cool systems in place and is likely your best window into how actually fucked you'd be if you woke up by yourself in the zombie apocalypse. But maybe that's what's at the core of our obsession with zombies. The odds are stacked so high against you in a scenario like this that in order to survive, you have to be demonstrably more awesome or lucky than everyone else. And DayZ offers you a rare opportunity to learn through trial and error all of the ways that you'd beef it in the zompocalypse so that you can be ready for the real thing. So if you want to do your research and be bad at DayZ, I recommend that you should just go do it. Unfortunately, you kind of messed up by not listening to tip 9 about not watching any tutorials online. But don't despair. I don't know you, but if you're anything like me, I'm sure you'll be pretty terrible on your own merits and will be able to share your own tips in the comments about how to be bad at DayZ. Until next time, remember that the true monster is people, and I'll see you all soon on Random Game Reviews.
I'm gonna review your fighting as really shitty. Would recommend that anyone learn fighting from you.